From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
We're beating Biden.
How dare he say that?
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America. Hello and welcome to Firstpost America. I'm Eric Ham, coming to you live from the nation's capital in Washington, D.C. And over the next few minutes, we'll take you from the United States and around the world, covering all the top stories of the day. But before that, let's take a look at the latest headlines. The Biden administration will resume shipping 500-pound bombs to Israel, but will hold back the supply of 2,000-pound bombs over concerns about their use in Gaza. Leftists in France attacked President Emmanuel Macron after he called for a broader coalition government, demanding that their movement alone should propose a prime minister. South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida hold talks on expanding cooperation and express concerns over growing ties between Russia and North Korea. China looks at tightening food safety after reports of companies using fuel trucks to transport cooking oil, sparking outrage on social media. And the European Union approves Apple's offer to allow rivals access to the iPhone's ability to tap to pay within the bloc, ending a lengthy probe into breach of EU competition law. We begin in the United States. President Joe Biden continues to face pressure to abandon his presidential campaign after his poor debate performance against former President Donald Trump last month. On Wednesday, former House Speaker and President Biden's longtime ally, Nancy Pelosi, became the most senior member of the Democratic Party to subtly float the possibility of President Biden stepping aside. Now, while Pelosi did not explicitly tell President Biden to do so, she did say that the commander-in-chief must decide quickly whether to stay in the race. However, Pelosi later said her comments were subjected to misrepresentations. Meanwhile, Hollywood star George Clooney, who co-hosted a star-studded fundraiser for President Biden just last month, also withdrew his support. In an opinion piece, Clooney said President Biden is not the same man he was back in 2020 and urged him to step aside. The actor said, and I quote, "I love Joe Biden as a senator, as a vice president, and as president. I consider him a friend, and I believe in him, believe in his character, believe in his morals. In the last 4 years, he's won many of the battles he's faced, but the one battle he cannot win is the fight against time." Now, Clooney is not the only one openly urging President Biden to drop out of the race. In fact, Senator Peter Welch from Vermont has also called on President Biden to withdraw in an op-ed, becoming the first Democratic senator to explicitly call for President Biden to step aside. Now, reports also say that Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has also privately signaled he's open to a nominee other than President Biden. However, he has reiterated his support for the 81-year-old publicly. So far, 7 House Democrats have called for the commander-in-chief to exit the race. However, it is worth noting that public defections remain a small segment of the 213 Democratic-aligned House members. Additionally, the Democratic leadership continues to support the president publicly. In fact, just earlier this week, President Biden dared Democratic critics to challenge him at the party convention in August. The president has also repeatedly said that he would run the presidential race till the end to defeat Donald Trump. Now, in his speech at the NATO Summit, delivered a message of global leadership in hopes of easing growing concerns over his fitness for office. Now, all of this comes as new polling data shows the race for the White House is in fact tightening, and rank-and-file voters continue to express their unwavering support for the incumbent. President Biden will be doing a primetime interview airing on national television next week on the opening night of the Republican National Convention, signaling to Democratic elites and the donor class that he's not heeding their calls and remains the party's presumptive nominee. And staying in the United States, the NATO Summit concluded day 2 of the 75th gathering of the military alliance right here in Washington, D.C. NATO members have not just taken on Russia for its assault against Ukraine, but also Russia's key ally, China. The alliance accused Beijing of playing a key role in helping Moscow's assault in Ukraine and said that China's deepening ties with Russia are a major cause of concern. A NATO declaration from the summit said, quote, China has become a decisive enabler of Russia's war against Ukraine through its so-called No Limits partnership and its large-scale support of Russia's defense industrial base, end quote. NATO leaders urged China to cease all support to Russia's war effort, including transfer of weapons, components, and equipment. A final communique also raises concerns about China's nuclear arsenal.
China provides dual-use equipment, microelectronics, a lot of other tools which are enabling Russia to build the missiles, to build the bombs, to build the aircraft, to build the weapons they are using to attack Ukraine. And the fact that this is now clearly stated, agreed by all NATO allies is an important message to China. And then, of course, we also then state that it cannot continue like this.
Now, responding to the declaration, China warned NATO against provoking a confrontation over its ties with Russia. Beijing said NATO should stop hyping up the so-called China threat and instead do more to contribute to world peace and stability. The strategic partnership between Russia and China has grown exponentially since Moscow's invasion of Ukraine. And China has refused to condemn Russia's invasion and called for a political settlement. Meanwhile, NATO leaders continued to bolster support for Ukraine with more aid headed to the war-ravaged country. The alliance pledged $43 billion in military aid for Ukraine within the next year. And U.S. President Joe Biden added that the alliance will defend every inch of its NATO territory.
This new pledge sends an unmistakable message to the world that every NATO member is committed to doing their part to keep the alliance strong. We can and will defend every inch of NATO territory, and we'll do it together. And that we're investing in our future strength to ensure NATO will always be ready for whatever threats we will face should be a clear message we're sending to the world.
The United States also said the first F-16 fighter jets are on their way to Ukraine and will be flying sorties this summer. The F-16s are being transferred to Kyiv from Denmark and the Netherlands. Ukraine says the jets could help its forces reshape the situation on the battlefield. NATO members have also pledged their support for an irreversible path to future membership for Ukraine.
In our meeting, we also decided to take further steps to bring Ukraine even closer to NATO. As Ukraine continues its vital reforms, we will continue to support them on their irreversible path to NATO membership. The work we are doing together now will ensure that when the time is right, Ukraine can join without delay. It is not a question of if, but when.
More poignantly, the U.S. also said it will start deploying long-range missiles to Germany in 2026. Now, this is seen as a major step aimed at countering the growing threat Russia poses to Europe. The decision to send Germany the most potent U.S. weapons to be based in Europe since the Cold War is a clear warning to Russian President Vladimir Putin. U.S. President Joe Biden also hosted NATO partners and allies for a dinner at the White House to celebrate what he called the greatest alliance the world has ever known. In his speech, President Biden said NATO was stronger than it has ever been. And shifting focus to the Arctic, rising global temperatures are expediting the melting of ice caps in the region. The Arctic contains some of the world's largest untapped mineral and fossil fuel resources. It's also an ideal strategic location with tremendous potential for new rapid trade routes. So naturally, tensions are already simmering in the region with world powers vying for influence. Anticipating these tensions, the Canadian government is bolstering its Arctic defense strategy. Ottawa has greenlit its plans to acquire up to 12 submarines. And Canada's defense policy, which was updated this year, prioritizes Arctic protection in dealing with challenges from Russia and China. The procurement of submarines is a critical step in implementing this strategy as Canada's current fleet of 4 submarines grows more obsolete and expensive to maintain. The new fleet of submarines will be conventionally powered and capable of operating under ice. Citing global warming, Canada says the Arctic Ocean could become the most efficient shipping route between Europe and Asia by 2050, thus raising the need to bolster maritime security. Canada has been under intense pressure from the United States to boost its defense spending to meet the 2% GDP agreed to by NATO allies last year. The race in the Arctic is also shaping up as another frontier where allies Russia and China stand against NATO. For now, Russia has been dominating the race with support from Beijing, and Moscow has already been increasing its military footprint in the Arctic. For Vladimir Putin, Russia's domination of the Arctic is more critical than ever. With Sweden and Finland joining NATO, Russia is the only non-NATO country left in the Arctic. This has led Russia to significantly expand its military capabilities in the region, and Moscow has been constructing and refurbishing major ports and bases throughout the Arctic. The Russian Arctic is believed to hold up to 95% of Russian gas reserves and 60% of Russian oil reserves that are still unexplored. While all-out Arctic war certainly isn't imminent, clearly jockeying for position is underway, making the possibility for confrontation increasingly likely. And in South Korea, Seoul is set to deploy laser weapons to shoot down drones coming from North Korea. The program, dubbed the Star Wars Project, could begin as soon as this year. Now, authorities say these laser weapons are quiet, invisible, and cost just over $1 per shot. With this advanced capability, South Korea will become the first nation to deploy and utilize laser weapons. Our next report takes a deeper look at the ambitious program.
In the year 1950, North Korea and South Korea went to war. The two neighbors fought for 3 years and it ended in an armistice, not a peace agreement. So, almost 75 years on, they're technically still at war. And now, relations between Pyongyang and Seoul are more tense than ever. In the latest, South Korea has planned to deploy laser weapons to shoot down North Korean drones that cross into its territory. Laser weapons are basically a type of directed energy weapon that uses laser to inflict damage upon enemy weapons. South Korea's arms procurement agency, the Defense Acquisition Program Administration, or the DAPA, says the laser program will be known as the Star Wars Project and it could begin as soon as this year. With this project, South Korea will become the world's first country to deploy and operate such weapons in the military. According to the DAPA, the South Korean military, along with the aerospace company Hanwha, has developed these drone-zapping laser weapons. They are effective and cost just around $1.45 per shot. Authorities say the laser weapons are quiet and invisible, and they shoot down flying drones by burning down engines and other electric equipment in the drones. Their beams of light are so quick that they can destroy the enemy drones in just 10 to 20 seconds. In December 2022, 5 drones from North Korea breached the South Korean airspace, which prompted Seoul to deploy fighter jets and attack helicopters in order to shoot them down. This was the first such intrusion since 2017, highlighting the tensions between the neighbors. Notably, the Korean War ended in an armistice in 1953. An armistice is an agreement by opposing sides at war that they will suspend hostilities temporarily. The two Koreas now have a demilitarized zone, or the DMZ, which is a border barrier that divides the Korean peninsula roughly in half. The United States has time and again said that both North and South Korea have violated the armistice by sending drones into each other's airspace. It's worth noting that even countries like China, India and the United Kingdom are racing to develop and deploy laser weapons. A US non-profit think tank says these directed energy weapons could also help counter the proliferation of unmanned systems and target missiles in flight or satellites in orbit.
And finally, artificial intelligence has created a rift in the vibrant world of K-pop. It's sparking debates and dividing opinions among fans and artists alike. As AI takes on roles from songwriting to music video production, the industry finds itself at a crossroads, torn between embracing cutting-edge technology and preserving the human touch that has long defined its artistry. Our final report explores AI's growing impact on the music industry.
Artificial intelligence has sneaked its way into our daily lives, whether we like it or not. From navigation systems in the car to the friendly or not so friendly voice on the other end of a customer service call, AI is becoming our ever-present companion. Despite its brilliance, not everyone is thrilled about this technological marvel. Some worry it will eventually outshine humans, while others argue that AI lacks that quintessential human touch. As a result, people are divided. Some embrace it openly, while others use it under the radar, fearing judgment. The Korean pop music industry, however, has no such qualms. They're out and proud about their AI usage. They've been employing it for almost everything. Right from generating music videos to penning lyrics, there is nothing AI is not doing for K-pop. Take the uber-popular boy band 17 for instance. Their album Maestro became the talk of the town, partly because of its AI-generated video scenes and possibly AI-crafted lyrics. Band member Woozy admitted to dabbling with AI in songwriting, fueling speculation and excitement within their fan armies. Meanwhile, girl group aespa has taken AI integration to another level. They feature several AI members alongside human ones. Their video Supernova showcased AI magic with band members' face moving only their mouths. This AI invasion in K-pop has stirred mixed reactions. Fans argue AI could help artists overcome creative blocks and keep up with the increasing pressure to release albums more frequently. On the flip side, skeptics fear losing that emotional connection with their idols. They wonder if music, which is often a reflection of artists' emotions, will still feel authentic when AI is involved. The demand for heartfelt personal songs is not going anywhere. After all, some things AI just can't replicate. In April, over 200 artists, including big names like Billie Eilish and Nicki Minaj, called for a halt to the predatory use of AI in music. They posted an open letter urging tech firms to rethink developing AI music generation tools. So where does that leave the human race? Whether AI will become the next big collaborator in the music industry or remain a controversial tool, that is still up in the air. But one thing is for sure, AI is here and it's not hitting the pause button anytime soon.
That's our show for today. We certainly thank you so much for tuning in. We hope to see you right back here again tomorrow. Thanks again for watching. From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
We're beating Biden.
How dare he say that?
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America.
Hello and welcome to Firstpost Africa, where we get you the top stories from the continent and from across the world. I'm Alison Lagrange, coming to you live from Durban, South Africa. First, let's take a look at the headlines. The Kremlin says Russia is planning response measures to contain very serious threat from NATO, as leaders of the Western Military Alliance hold a summit in Washington. Democrat heavyweight Nancy Pelosi, actor and donor George Clooney mount pressure on Joe Biden as a Democratic senator calls on him to ditch his re-election bid. Taiwan says it has detected 66 Chinese military aircraft around the island in 24 hours, a record high number of sorties this year. Dark plume of smoke rises from the spire as Gothic Cathedral in French